Thank you, President. Today I rise to speak on the damaging floods that hit the communities across northern Victoria. President, I want to make it clear that the government does not oppose this motion, but I want to make it clear that the government does not need an excuse to visit and support flood-affected communities across northern Victoria. We're already putting in that work. While regional sitting represents an opportunity for members of this House from non-flood affected regions to hear directly from those Victorians impacted by the floods, we're already visiting, talking and acting, investing in what matters, supporting them. I encourage all members in this place to do so already. I grew up in northern Victoria. I know what these floods meant. Homes were flooded, business and livelihoods were put on hold, and there was wall-to-wall news coverage. It was shocking. Towns and communities of northern Victoria were left devastated. I would like to commend the proactive work of the Victorian SES, who hit the doors, warning residents of the oncoming storms, as well as pushing warnings to locals through the Vic Emergency app, as well as through the website in the days leading up to the flood. The Vic SES had a hard job. The scale of their operation was incredible. They established more than 50 sandbag collection points across the state, helping families fortify homes against the oncoming storms. In the end, over 1 million sandbags were handed out to the members of the community. That's 1 million. Within 24 hours, they saw 3,049 requests for assistance, including 1,766 flood incidents and 128 rescues. This is dangerous stuff, but the Victorian SES didn't back down. I want to take this opportunity to thank VicPol for their life-saving work. Lifesaving Victoria, Esther and the countless community members who performed almost 1,000 water rescues. That's 1,000 rescues. Now, much of Victoria had received their highest October rainfall on record during this time. It was record-breaking stuff. A once-in-a-generation event which saw homes destroyed, businesses closed and lives changed forever. The people needed help and the Vic SES, alongside many other emergency services, answered the call. The government was also quick to act. The Premier himself took active involvement, urging Victorians to be prepared for the floods through media and meeting with the Commonwealth to discuss support in our regional communities. In the wake of this once-in-a-generation event, the government, community groups and countless volunteers were faced with the task of cleaning up, rebuilding and helping communities recover. As many of us know, the road to recovery is long, but we are making inroads. We have committed over $1.8 million of support to help communities, businesses, pharmacists and non-for-profits to rebuild. Payments of $75,000 for primary producers, $50,000 for eligible businesses and not-for-profits to help pay expenses concerning fixing the significant damage incurred by the floods. $15 million will help people who have complex needs to help secure alternative accommodation, delivering additional counselling services. $22 million will help establish up to 16 recovery hubs. The clean-up task has been massive, but teams have been working around the clock. Over 50% of this work has been undertaken by local contractors, the $150 million that was announced to support this work. President, us on this side of the chamber acknowledge the serious effects of floods. This goes to the heart of the motion. Where homes were lost, we opened temporary accommodation for residents. Our very own Centre for National Resilience in Mickleham was open for emergency accommodation up till mid-March. But the reality is these floods are getting worse and worse by the year, and the cost of cleaning up the damage is rising each time. It's more important than ever that we as a state work together to build long-term strategies to mitigate the effects of floods, which is why I want to talk about the implementation of the effectiveness of the government's 2016 Victorian Floodplain Management Strategy. We understand that the future of our climate change and the changing climate has serious implications for Victoria. The very nature it will see floods happen more often and hit our communities harder. That is why a long-term strategy on managing these disastrous events is so important. Supporting local residents and businesses, building back is essential, but it must go hand in hand with larger efforts to mitigate the effects of persistent flooding brought about by climate change. The Victorian Floodplain Management Strategy was released in April 2016. It set the direction for floodplain management in Victoria, outlining what this government is prepared to do over the coming years to protect regional Victorians. It was ambitious, no doubt, but we are an ambitious government, and since the last floods, our government has done a lot. We've installed over 150 monitoring devices across Victoria. 5 levies at Euroa, Wodonga, Quambatook, Robinvale, Warwick Nabil, and other flood works at Charlton and Donald. Our 2020 and 2021 budget also provided $26.7 million over 4 years to prepare for future floods in critical areas. Our floodplain management strategy also set forth our commitment to working with the Victorian SES, local governments and local communities in developing the regional floodplain management strategies to ensure local priorities are met. Local voices are important, especially in areas that has large as Northern Victoria. Under our floodplain management strategy, 59 flood studies were conducted for various areas around the state, working hand in hand with those very local communities. And since 2018, the implementation of these regional strategies commenced, led by the respective committees. Listening to regional communities and the experts who have studied our vast environment throughout their lives is essential to this process. The Catchment Management Authority is expected to deliver its mid-term report soon, 5 years on. Our government listened to the concerns of the communities across the state, then we acted. We are only half the way through the floodplain management strategy, and we have delivered so much, and as I acknowledged earlier. Our government recognises the impact of floods have had on the livelihoods of communities. It's why we have taken and will continue to take decisive action preparing Victorian communities against these devastating floods. The work done by our state Victorians is unmatched. It's no easy task, and I would like to again once thank the hard-working men and women who have devoted countless hours to studying our regions and helping develop dozens of local plans to ensure devastation of this magnitude never happens again. This hard work, of course, cannot continue without the continued support of the compassionate government, and I am also proud the work of our government is doing with the resources of our SES. Our last budget alone prepared a record $28.5 million in funding for the Vic SES. This means new facilities and new vehicles. New and more comprehensive training, including swift water rescue courses. How important, considering the sheer number of water rescues delivered. The work done by the Vic SES is awe-inspiring, truly it is, and I'm proud to be part of the government which not only cares but listens and responds to their needs. These new resources will go a long way to helping our state. They will save lives, businesses and entire communities. Earlier touched on the scale of the operations of the Vic SES conducted throughout October and beyond the northern Victoria. It still amazes me. But what worries me is events like this will only grow more common with climate change. Faced with that, training our next generation to be the best of our ability is vital if we hope to fight the effects brought upon us by our changing climate. It's the right thing to do. If we just protect these communities from future flooding, we have to think about the future and how we compare ourselves to meet those challenges. Greater investments in Vic SES resources and the training program is integral. We've also invested $110 million in VESP grants toward volunteer groups since 2015. This year alone, nearly $15 million is available to the various volunteer organisations operating in Victoria, including Vic SES and Lifesaving Victoria. As these floods get more and more common, it's important that we also, as a state, also continue to fund these vital programs to make sure that extra assistance is available to those who need it and when the time comes. The additional support that comes from the VESP towards our many vital community organisations helps these deliver aid when it's needed, and well as helping them acquire any additional resources they may need on the ground when it matters the most. All of these initiatives together go a long way towards ensuring that communities, including those across northern Victoria, are prepared for when the next flood, whenever that may be, arrives. This government, I am proud to say, has an incredible record of adhering to these values. As I said before, listening to the community and then acting goes a long way. When the devastating Black Summer bushfires hit in late 2019, this very chamber had a regional sitting in Bright. Members had an opportunity to visit local schools, businesses, schools and community organisations to hear from those impacted firsthand. It's important we must stand united as a state when the crisis hits. Through the devastation which many of us saw unfold, I was proud to see Victorians from across the state come together to help one another. So when regional sittings do happen, I encourage all members to make the most of it. It's a massive logistical exercise, so let's take advantage of it. It's what we do. It's what makes us Australian, us Victorians. I acknowledge the pain and suffering residents across northern Victoria felt throughout the crisis, and I again commend the work of the effort of councillors, volunteers, community and emergency services workers towards helping them throughout the emergency and the ongoing recovery.